Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast State of the Balance with me, host and Pearl Dane. It's going to be a bit of a shorter version since, the patch hit a week ago. So, obviously it's going to be difficult to say much about the balance. We're going to sort of give some reads on how the meta seems to be going here in the opening stages of the new patch. So, that's sort of what we'll be looking at. So, just, a heads up. Starting out with the Surge, so they definitely seem to adapt it somewhat to the new command. Not all of them are using it, obviously. Some are using it. Others still using plenty of other commanders. Urban Defense is still in play. Shock Rifle. And pretty much like Gatmode and just a lot of the other standard commands. In fact, some others all beginning to catch on a bit more thanks to some of the new options there. For example, more conscript plays are happening due to the conscripts, getting access to the late game upgrade, but also just the SVT-40s from Airborne has made conscript builds a bit more popular again with the Surge, whereas for some time penal tool builds have been heavily dominant. Additionally, half-tax also begins to do more usage after the buff, but also I think due to some other factors, including their reasonable counters to sort of Panzer heavy units, since they got suppression, the moving can suppress better, so in this regard, these units trying to close them with Panzer can be more easily dealt with that. And similarly, the SU-6M is also seeing more usage, in part because I suspect again the Ostwind is sort of forcing that counter a bit more as well, so there's a definite shake-up here from the Surge in terms of how they're playing out, at least for now. And part of it's not just simply because of the buffs they received, but also simply because of the buffs the Germans have received, forcing them to explore new paths. And that's also, I think a crucial element to keep in mind there when it's talking balance and just, response and all that. Sometimes the things, have to get used because they're forced to. At least, there needs to be something that's bothered with it. Otherwise, you just go for the next big thing in the line, which is usually the HD5, because there's no real reason to go for the F6 a lot of the time. There was no threat at that stage. So, Ostwinds being out fast, for example, have suddenly increased, for example, the need for that. Plus, again, things able to threaten the T7, not necessarily threaten the half-tech so much, it's also increased a need for the half-tech. So, that's sort of some of the things I think we're all beginning to see here. So, that's a plus. For the Americans, not a big meta change. Some are using urban assault, but also usually the heavy cavalry, rifle, all that. There wasn't any sort of major change there with the American meta. So, even mechanized companies being used, even though this took a slight hit to the units firing from inside half-tacks and scout cars. But again, not big ones there. But again, some variety, some changes, slight less Pathfinder spam because that got nerfed, thankfully. But overall, nothing huge, nothing earth-shaking, just sort of the same usual, should I say, mix of all things being utilized there. So, that's sort of what's really happening there. For the British, the new doctrine there, Lend-Lease Assault, certainly seeing some usage, but plenty of the others are. There's been no similar hard move towards the new doctrine there. Similar to, I think, what we're seeing with most factions, and Universal Care is still seeing usage, but they're being a bit more cautious with them. Otherwise, they still build a lot of sections, get out on AC, and so on there, but of course, with some of the new things out, they perhaps is less just overwhelmingly effective, since there's now, in a sense, a few more counters to deal with it. So, there are some shifts there, but so far with the British, I'm not seeing anything massively noteworthy. Moving on to the Oberkommando West, similarly, Ground Offensive is reasonably popular, though it's not supplanted all doctrines, but it's certainly seeing a rise there alongside Breakthrough. So that's sort of, well, not Breakthrough, but Battle Group Headquarters. Breakthrough, interesting enough, has not seen a lot of usage despite the change to the Panzer Fusiliers, so there's that. But, you still see players, going for mechanized regiments, special operations, and so on. But there's, again, a slight shift there towards, more Panzer Fusilier-oriented strategies. And again, some trying out with Cooper Wagners, but there the Cooper Wagners for now does not really seem to have caught on a lot. So, in this regard, the Oberkommando West really didn't benefit hugely in that sense. The meta hasn't really changed a ton, but they do have few more options, which is, always a plus. Since and a good RTS meta, or any good game meta, really just has plenty of options, plenty of strategies to pursue. And, that's what we're seeing there. So, even if it's just a slight notch there, it's still an improvement with the Oberkommando West. Finally, we get to the Wehrmacht, which has certainly benefited nicely from this. There's an overall increase in strategy. Strategic reserves is seeing some usage, but there's also using mechanized assault, German infantry, elite troops, lightning war. Most of the doctrine of the Wehrmacht are seeing a certain increased usage there. It's less, just hard-coded into one doctrine. Additionally, there's definite increase in Panzer Grenadier usage across the board. They're not all players going for it. Some still prefer Grenadiers, and again, that just means there's an increase in overall strategic viability and variation there with the Wehrmacht, which is good. Some might try and more skip tier 2, which again is something I predicted, since for some players it doesn't really feel good. And if you can just go for the Panzer Grenadiers, there's certainly an option there for skipping that. But yeah, more Panzer Grenadiers, more Panzer Grenadiers with Panzer Shreks, and again more counter then to try and deal with them. KV-8s, for example, could be used as we've seen with Joe, and of course anti-aircraft half-tech also seem like, a potential way of slowing it down a bit if used correctly. So again, there's increased strategies and counter strategies. The Ostwind has all become much more popular due to again being actually good now. And so able to deal infantry, some rush them out, and some just didn't support their other armor. Stoogs, again, I mean, some players using Stoogs, but it doesn't really seem like there's been a massive increase in Stoogs, and overall they don't really seem to have benefited anyway from the buffs. But, you know, being able to support them with an Ostwind makes the Stoogs sort of better by tangent. Similarly, working in with, you know, veteran Pentagonalists also by tangent makes them better. So there's a bit more room for the Stug, but it's not because of the Stug itself. It's just the things that can support the Stug are better. I think we might see a bit more Stugs now because, again, I don't really believe in those buffs. I believe in them about just as much as I believe in EA's explanation about surprise mechanics. Yeah. So that's sort of how that one works out. But yeah, overall, more strategic variety there again. Some will rush for Tiger Races, some will use them sparingly, some will go for Tigers, some will go for Panthers, some more will be rushing for Tier 4, some will try to rush on Ostwind. I mean, they'll go. In this regard, the Wehrmacht does seem to have overall benefited nicely from that patch, and again, there's overall more strategic variety. Mechanized assault, of course, with assault grenadiers, and of course, strategic reserves, also assault grenadiers, also seeing much more usage, and some players might be stumbling with that since, you know, they have to engage the assault grenadiers more correctly now rather than just, you know, take it easy and just shoot them to bits. I mean, in that regard, there might be some stumbling there, and similarly, Pentagonalists may also cause some players to stumble more, since again, they're not used to a lot of players actually going for Pentagonalists, and Pentagonalists with the changes there, while not a direct huge buff, just make them cheaper, slightly more viable and faster, so that really just also helped make the Pentagonalists a lot more friendly, plus the veterancy changes also benefits them a bunch. So there's a lot there to going on. And overall, I mean, in that regard, the meta does seem to overall for now at least liven up, open up more strategic variation on average across the board with more strategies, more tactics viable, which is, you know, overall the big plus, the big thing. And also I think the thing when people talk balance tends to get ignored. Just people think, you know, only in win rates, but they tend less to think about, you know, well, how many strategies do each faction have available to them. And that's certainly, I think, what this patch has probably helped with a bunch. It's given more strategies available, partly, you know, through direction, but also just indirect ways as, you know, new threats arrive, other players have to consider these threats. So in this regard, I would say this has been a reasonably good patch. Though I'm still not sold on the Stug buff. I am not. But, you know, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. So, I mean, yeah, we're all so far looking good. We'll have to see how things are holding up, of course, in a month. But for now, it's looking positive, at least in my perspective, and sort of looking at variations, strategies, and, you know, what can actually happen. I mean, so far, none of the new commanders have suddenly become like the new thing with each of the armies, but at the same time, they're not just left by the wayside, so that's a good sign. So there you go, the state of the balance here for June 2019. So hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something from it, hope you gave some ideas from matches and what to look out for. Again, a bit difficult to talk a lot about it, since again, we're still sort of in the first week, but so, you know, trying to get some ideas in there. So if you enjoyed it, you know, subscribe, like, share, comment, tell your friends, tell your family, but don't tell your enemies. And if like we do, you can donate or pledge on Patreon. Every dollar allows me to keep doing this day after day, so do please throw in a bit of money there for me. This is Imperial Links, and cheers. Thanks for watching. You're all a wonderful audience. I hope to see you all another time for another video. Cheers.